Even a dog knows better than to stick its nose where it hurts. Unless, of course, you're my dachshund, in which case you will enthusiastically chew up on power cords that are plugged in, no matter how many times you are disciplined by me or an electrical current. Every action comes with a consequence. Everything we do comes with a consequence, good or bad. It's unavoidable. If we behave well, we may have predominantly positive consequences, and if our behavior is lackluster or depraved, then the consequences can be rather severe. But we now live in a culture that likes to pretend that cause and effect is some kind of myth, that you ought to be able to do literally anything you want, satisfy any urge that crosses your mind, and come out the other side both satisfied and totally unharmed. But that has never really been how reality functions. Every action has always had an equal and opposite reaction. No matter how badly we would like to convince ourselves otherwise, consequences are real and unavoidable. Now, nowhere else is this more glaringly evident than when it comes to sexual behaviors. Now, people, especially since the sexual revolution, although this is not necessarily anything new, always want to satisfy themselves. They always want to be as sexually active and promiscuous as they can manage, and they always want to carry out their own desires, their every desire. But nobody ever wants to deal with the natural consequences of these behaviors. They view the natural outcomes of promiscuity and depravity as some kind of an injustice. Because how dare our bodies be beholden to nature? How dare there be a consequence to sin? I want pleasure, not hurt. I want sex, not pregnancy. Nature just needs to step aside and let me do my thing without interfering. And I have no idea what I'm doing with my hands. And thus our culture is always trying to supersede nature by eliminating the consequences of sin. You want commitment-free sex without pregnancy? Here's a contraceptive. You want to be promiscuous and have all the sex you want without having to ever worry about giving or receiving an STD? We'll spend billions of dollars on research to try and make you immune to STDs. Instead of trying to tell you to simply just, keep your pants on. No, don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to suffer from an awful disease, but it's not hard to figure out that if you do something wrong, if you do something immoral, if you do something stupid, you're going to get some negative consequences. And attempting to nullify those consequences with billions of dollars towards trying to cure every STD known to man, it only gives people an excuse to continue the wrong behaviors, and it bolsters the moral rot that is going on in our society. In the same way that trying to eliminate prisons and law enforcement would not really do anything to stop criminal behavior. And, I gotta tell you, if everybody could just exercise just a modicum of restraint, a little bit of self-control in our culture, in our nation, in our world, then we could be the generation that completely eliminates STDs. Self-control is the cure. I'm just saying, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to figure out. Instead of trying to immunize people to the consequences of sin, maybe we should just exercise a little bit of restraint. Just a little bit. Everybody wants to do what they want. Nobody is willing to pay the price that inevitably comes along with that. All too often, in fact, the masses are more than eager to just pretend that the consequences don't exist. And then they are shocked when the consequences finally arise. Now, take this whole monkeypox outbreak, for example. Now, it's not politically correct to say, not that I care, but Everybody knows by now that monkeypox is predominantly transmitted via sexual contact, and that it is particularly prevalent among gay men. You can get mad at me for saying that out loud, but you do no one any favors by simply ignoring the facts, okay? That's simply true. Now, does this outbreak of yet another disease that spreads via sexual contact deter anybody from engaging in risky behaviors? No, because desires of the flesh are the gods of the completely secular mind, and it should be pursued at all costs. Despite the high risk of sexually transmitted diseases and a major outbreak of the monkeypox, San Francisco's Dora Alley Festival is still being put on. Now, for those of you who are still blissfully unaware of what Dora Alley is, I'm about to ruin your day. It is a kink festival. In other words, it is one enormous sex party predominantly attended by gay men, with thousands of people getting together with the sole interest of exchanging bodily fluids and engaging in group sex, and your day is officially ruined. And it's a heck of a day when the fact that this event even exists in our culture isn't really my big problem, nor unfortunately does it surprise me. I wish it did. Oh, I wish it did. But an epidemic disease that spreads via sexual contact wasn't enough to second guess putting this event on. This event that is the epitome of everything wrong with the fallen man. Oh no. But never fear, for San Francisco's AIDS Foundation, a nonprofit, is coming to the rescue with life-saving advice on how to avoid contracting dangerous diseases with its article, Ducci's Guide to a Door Alley Without Fear of Monkeypox. Now, you might be asking, well, they're telling them not to engage in any unnecessary risky sexual behavior, right? And maybe to keep their clothes on? Ha! Oh, you naive soul. Oh, how I wish I was still as innocent as you. Nope. That was then in the way of people's sexual appetites being fulfilled, and they can't have that. No, the only clothes that they recommend anybody wear are latex and leather. And that's an actual piece of advice from this article, such as it is, if you can even call it an article. But this article, if you can call it that, starts off with, "We are gearing up for an exciting return to our favorite street festival in San Francisco. Up Your Alley, aka Door Alley, where you'll get your fill of hot hairy daddies, hungry pigs, BDSM babes, and kinks of all kinds. Ducci's got some hot tips for fun, and a filthy weekend free of anxiety." Well, they got that filthy part right, at least. And truly, we have reached the pinnacle of culture for the human race. So glad that there is no stigma surrounding this craziness, aren't you? but let's get into some of the gems that this article from the San Francisco AIDS Foundation gives. So the first piece of advice: enjoy the show. Check out bondage demonstrations and other public performances. Use what you see at Door as inspiration for your play with regular sex partners. I'm not sure how that helps in any way, shape, or form. It just sounds like a creepy advertisement. Moving on. So the second piece of advice that this lovely article provides: it's okay to be picky with your sexual partners. Well, congratulations on discovering baseline level common sense. But some of us take this statement a bit more seriously than others, I think, in that some of us choose one partner and stick with them for the rest of our lives. You may have heard of this extremely radical practice. But the article goes on. Keep in mind that condoms can reduce risk of monkeypox, but not eliminate the risk entirely, since monkeypox, rashes, or lesions can show up all over the body. Condoms are a great way to prevent other STIs and also HIV. You know, an even better STD prevention strategy: don't sleep around. But you didn't hear that from me. But the article goes on. Oh, dear heaven. Take your friends to the dungeon. Not a promising start. Going to sex parties with other people you know and planning on who you'll hook up with can be one way to reduce your risk if you're able to have open, honest conversations about monkeypox symptoms and possible exposures. Talk to the people you'll play with ahead of time about monkeypox, but also things like HIV PrEP and sexual health testing. Yes, I'm sure that if there's one thing that a sex party is a cesspit of, it's open dialogue and intellectually stimulating conversation. Thank you so much for that gem of advice. And here is the big one that gives away the nature of the beast. Cover up your own bumps. See a bump on your skin and worry that it might be monkeypox? If you're not sure, and you still want to go out tonight, cover it up with a Band-Aid or clothing before you go out. So even if you have the disease they are trying to prevent the transmission of, you should still engage. Go out and fulfill your every carnal desire, because why should spreading death and disease, or anything else, stand in the way of your sexual appetite? My goodness. You give away the whole game right there, don't you? Because the only thing that matters to these people is the fulfillment of sexual desire. They don't care about anything else. That's all they care about. They don't have Jesus in their lives or anything that provides their life with meaning. So sex is all they have. Without that, they don't know what to do with themselves. If they're not sleeping with somebody, they don't know. They got nothing. Once more, the consequences just don't matter. They don't care. They'll pretend that they don't even exist until after they have their fun, after they get it in. And, unfortunate phrasing, and then when the bill comes due and they have to pay the price for their actions, they'll shrug off the responsibility and play the victim. Because that's what they've been taught to do. They will blame something or someone else, anything besides themselves. They won't blame their own actions or decisions. They'll blame anything and anyone else. There is a cost to sin of every kind, and sexual depravity certainly does not escape this truth. To ignore the truth and simply allow or even encourage people to engage in activities and lifestyles that will destroy them, body and soul, that is not loving. The loving and compassionate person will tell you that what you are doing will have a cost. They will tell you the cost of what you do. And they will probably encourage you to choose a different, less destructive path. Now, forgive me if I end up reading from the screen here because I don't have these numbers memorized off the top of my head, but do you know that it has been a consistent statistic for decades that approximately 78% of all sexually practicing homosexuals are affected by at least one sexually transmitted disease? And do you know that while homosexuals only make up approximately 3% of the US population, the CDC found that the LGBT community still accounts for the vast majority of syphilis cases, with 83% being attributed to gay and bisexual men, 60% of known gonorrhea cases, and 75% of all occurrences of HIV. And as recently as 2018, the CDC reported that gay and bisexual men made up 69% of all new HIV diagnoses. As I was doing research for my book, I noticed that the CDC on their website displaying all the data for STD rates among the homosexual community, I noticed that they now publicly blame. Do you know what they blame now for the high rates of STDs in the gay community? Homophobia. This is a direct quote. They blame a refusal of some people to acknowledge the legitimacy of gay unions, direct quote, for the transmission of venereal diseases amongst gay men. Now, I don't know about you. I can't speak for everyone, but I have never met a single person who contracted HIV from hearing an insensitive gay joke. I have yet to encounter this person. Maybe you've met them. Now, I don't know who wrote these claims into the data, but such accusations make such little sense that I cannot figure out how somebody can say something so mind-numbingly stupid and still maintain the mental capacity required to breathe. It's just that dumb. It frankly concerns me that we trust people like this with our health. But the CDC apparently is trying to convince us, oh no, high rates of STDs amongst the gay community are not because they are engaging in activities which spread the diseases. No, it is because of all of you people who tell them that it's probably not a good idea for them to engage in such activities which are known to spread STDs. No, those are the real culprits. It is the promotion of sexual morality which is the super spreader. Okay, that's the problem. Venereal diseases are contracted most often when you are celibate and chaste, apparently. And the spreading stops when you are most engaging in activities which are known to spread STDs. I'm sorry, I might have gotten a little carried away there, but it's just so amazing to me how dumb people are willing to sound in order to further a social agenda. Clearly, not all behaviors and lifestyles are created equal. Some are inherently better and some are not so good for you. That's just a fact. And of course, if I love somebody enough to say that out loud to them, I risk getting into trouble for it. Now, if you were a heavy drinker, doctors will tell you that you risk damaging your liver heavily, and they will recommend that you stop because you will shorten your life expectancy. If you smoke cigarettes, medical professionals will tell you that you risk developing lung cancer, and again, you will shorten your life expectancy considerably, and they will recommend that you stop. If you are a practicing homosexual, however, if you are very sexually active as a homosexual, no medical professional will say a word of warning, even though it presents more risk than either of the previous two examples. And in fact, the doctors would probably get into trouble if they did say something about it. If your doctor informs you that the average lifespan of a practicing homosexual man is no less than 20%, 8 to 20 years less than the average heterosexual man, he will likely be smeared as a homophobe and have his life and career destroyed, simply for speaking the medical truth. It just seems rather incongruent not to mention that it seems uncaring and unloving to force people to withhold such vital information for the sake of political correctness. C.S. Lewis wrote, "It is for people whom we care nothing about that we demand happiness on any terms. With our friends, our lovers, our children, we are exacting and would rather see them suffer much than be happy in contemptible modes." Now, if I love somebody, I want what is good for them, and I want them to be aware when their behavior is more dangerous than smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Okay, and I would want to encourage them to practice a modicum of self-control for their own good. But people don't want to hear today that self-control is even an option, much less that it is the solution to most of society's ills. No, they just want to fulfill their every desire, pursue every kink, and pretend that consequences are mythical. And to hell with anybody who suggests otherwise, or that there is a better way to live. If that is the way that you wish to utilize and abuse your free will, I can't stop you. It is your life to live. All I can do is tell you, inform you that there is a cost, and pray that you find meaning in something infinitely greater than base pleasure, and pray that you discover what true joy really is, and pray that you discover God and change your ways, and mourn for you if you don't. That's all I can do. You are a free being. But no matter how much you might hate me for it, I will continue to love you and respect you enough to tell you the truth, and encourage you to pick up on the fruits of the Spirit, which will do much to make your life and that of your loved ones worth living. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you appreciated what you heard, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe. With Big Tech cracking down, that is more important than ever. Because if they had their way, messages like this probably wouldn't get out very often. And the more you share me on other platforms, the harder it is for them to keep a lid on me. So by all means, share away. And don't forget to subscribe, of course. And if you have not yet, don't forget to check out my book, Back to the Basics of Love, A Single Christian's Guide to Dating, Sex, and Morality in a Secular World. I truly believe in this book. You should too. So please, by all means, get yourself a copy, get your friends a copy, your loved ones a copy, and share the word as far as the word will go. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless you.